Wound healing and tissue repair. Wound healing is a complex and dynamic biological process. In human adults, the normal response to injury across all organ systems typically results in fibrosis and scar formation. Fibrotic healing causes tissue dysfunction, and its potential impact on patients is often underappreciated. This contrasts with early gestation, when fetal tissues can remarkably heal without fibrosis. Regenerative medicine is therefore an exciting field of research. A better understanding of the mechanisms involved can potentially help reduce the global burden of disease associated with wound healing. This chapter describes the pathophysiology of wound healing, the types of healing, and how to classify wounds. Clinical judgment is crucial in managing wounds. A framework is provided to better understand the key principles of wound and scar management. Normal wound healing in skin. Classically, wound healing has been arbitrarily described in three overlapping but distinct stages, including inflammation, proliferation, and remodeling, Figure 3.1. An additional stage, hemostasis, is often described as the immediate phase occurring before inflammation. Hemostasis. Disruption of the vascular endothelium following injury causes vasoconstriction and exposure of the subendothelial extracellular matrix. This encourages platelets to adhere, activate, and aggregate, resulting in a platelet plug, which also helps limit further blood loss. Platelet adhesion results in their activation and release of granules. Alpha granules contain hundreds of proteins, including cytokines and growth factors, for example, transforming growth factor beta, platelet-derived growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, epidermal growth factor, and vascular endothelial growth factor. These are involved in the deposition of extracellular matrix, chemotaxis, epithelialization, and the formation of new blood vessels, angiogenesis. Platelet aggregation occurs once platelets become activated. At the same time, tissue factor at the site of injury initiates the coagulation cascade, Figure 3.2, resulting in the formation of thrombin. Thrombin performs various functions, including fibrin generation, which helps to stabilize the platelet plug and form a scaffold for infiltrating cells. Inflammation. In the early inflammatory phase, days 1 to 2, platelet activation causes an influx of inflammatory cells led by polymorphonuclear leukocytes, particularly neutrophils. The latter are important for minimizing bacterial contamination of the wound. Platelets in the local injured tissue also release vasoactive amines such as histamine and serotonin, which increase vascular permeability, thereby aiding in infiltration of inflammatory cells. During the late inflammatory phase, days 2 to 3, monocytes appear in the wound and differentiate into macrophages. Macrophages play a vital role in wound healing. They function as phagocytic cells and release proteolytic enzymes to help debride the wound. They are also the primary producer of cytokines and growth factors, promoting fibroblast proliferation and angiogenesis. Historically, this phase has been described by Ribot, redness, tumor, swelling, calor, heat, and dollar pain. Proliferation. The proliferative phase starts around day 3 and lasts for 2 to 4 weeks. It consists mainly of fibroblast activity with the production of ground substance, glycosaminoglycans and proteoglycans, collagen, angiogenesis, and reepithelialization of the wound. The wound tissue formed in the early part of this phase is called granulation tissue. It has a pink and granular appearance. In the later part of this phase, there is an increase in Th. Tensile strength of the wound is a result of increased collagen synthesized by fibroblasts. Some fibroblasts differentiate into myofibroblasts, which are contractile cells. These play an important role in contraction to bring the edges of the wound together. Remodeling. The remodeling phase begins 2 to 3 weeks after injury and lasts for a year or more. This phase is characterized by maturation of collagen. Type 3 collagen, which is prevalent during proliferation, is replaced by stronger type 1 collagen until the normal skin ratio of 4:1 type 1 to type 3 collagen is re-established. The collagen becomes more cross-linked and uniformly aligned. This maturation of collagen leads to increased tensile strength in the wound, which is maximal 12 weeks post-injury and represents approximately 80% of the uninjured skin strength. Normal healing in other specific tissues. Bone healing occurs in similar phases to those for skin but with some differences. Figure 3.3. Most fractures heal by callus formation, which involves intramembranous and endochondral loss of cation. This is known as indirect or secondary bone healing and typically occurs in non-operative fracture management. A hematoma forms at the fracture site and there is an inflammatory response. The fracture hematoma is gradually replaced by a soft callus. This fibrocartilage callus then undergoes endochondral loss of cation to form hard callus, which is woven bone helping to stabilize the fracture. Intramembranous loss of cation also occurs directly adjacent to the distal and proximal fracture ends. Hard callus formation is followed by bony remodeling, where woven bone is replaced by lamellar bone. Primary bone healing is a direct bone union process involving intramembranous loss of cation without callus formation. It does not commonly occur in the natural process of healing since it requires fracture ends to be directly opposed and rigidly affixed with absolute stability. If a gap exists, then secondary healing may lead to delayed union, non-union or malunion. Primary healing is therefore the aim of open reduction and internal affixation surgery. See also Chapter 32. Nerve. Peripheral nerve degeneration and regeneration are summarized in Figure 3.4. Distal to nerve injury, neurotmesis, Wolfram degeneration occurs. Proximally, the nerve suffers degeneration as far as the nearest node of Ranvier. The regenerating nerve fibres are attracted to their receptors by neurotropism, which is mediated by growth factors, hormones in the extracellular matrix. Injury of the perineurium and inflammation can lead to neuroma formation, where the disorganized nerve regeneration leads to a painful lump. Tendon. Although repair follows the normal pattern of wound healing, there are two main mechanisms whereby nutrients, cells and new vessels reach the severed tendon. Intrinsic healing consists of vincular blood flow and synovial diffusion. Extrinsic healing depends on the formation of fibrous adhesions between the tendon and the tendon sheath. Early active mobilization following tendon repairs prevents adhesions limiting the range of motion and therefore promotes the more desired intrinsic healing. At the same time, tendon repairs must be protected by splintage to avoid rupture. Figure 3.4 schematic diagram illustrating the process of degeneration and regeneration after peripheral nerve injury. When normal nerves suffer a physical injury, the portion of the lesion site and its distal stump undergo destruction and break down to produce myelin debris. This degenerative process is called Wolfram degeneration B. Then, Schwann cells, SCs, recruit macrophages to scavenge degenerated myelin fragments, C. Meanwhile, SCs proliferate and migrate alone to the basal lamina to form bands of Bungner, which guide the axon to reinnervate towards the corresponding target D. Adapted from Lee R. Lee D.H., Zhang Hai et al. Growth factor-based therapeutic strategies in their underlying signaling mechanisms for peripheral nerve regeneration. Actor Pharmacosyn 2020, 41, 1289 300. 2020, http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0/closing parenthesis.